Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls of all ages, welcome to a new segment here on the movie channel. I am Movie Critic Rob here with John DeGregorio of Movie Lovers Unite and TV Lovers Unite, whichever you prefer, although they're kind of the same thing. And the segment that we're starting here today is called Best and Worst. Now, you're probably thinking, what are you talking about? What you doing? Well, this is basically what it is. In simple terms, it's basically we take either a director or an actor, and we do, just like we were saying in the title, we'll take the best 5 works that they've done, worst 5 works that they've done, to kind of give you an overall picture of just their whole list of works and their whole career in film. And today, and because I've had him on my mind for the past probably 3 weeks, we're going to start this series correctly with the king of 90s and early 2000s comedy himself, the man, the legend, Jim Carrey. Woo! Yeah. Alrighty. So we've compiled a list. We've agreed on the list together on his best works and his worst works, and we're going to break them down. And we're not talking about the movies necessarily. We're going to be talking about just him in the movie, if that makes sense. We're not, like, for example, we use this when we were comparing movies. For example, we all can agree that Batman Forever is not the strongest film. However, I don't think he did that bad of a job. It's nowhere on this list. It's not in the top 5 best. It's not in the top 5 worst. But it's a good example of what we're trying to talk about. So, without further ado, and there's been a lot of ado and doo-doo. I'm just kidding. So far, I'm going to let John start this off with the first one. And we're going to do the top 5 worst first and then the top 5 best. Just end on a high note. So, John, take it away.
All right. The very first movie that we're going to talk about is The Truman Show. That's right. This movie, for me, didn't really fit Jim Carrey's personality, per se. I really felt like Jim Carrey was pretty much playing himself rather than him playing another character. And I felt like, his performance was like a hit and miss in some areas as well. And I just feel like, this movie, he did the best he could do with it because of the script that was given to him. But there was just something about it that said that this movie, he had so much more potential that he could actually build on. And I just didn't really care for it. And the only thing that I liked about it was the quote, "If I don't talk to you again, good morning, good afternoon, and good night." That was like the only quote that I pretty much liked from that whole entire movie, per se. But anyways, like I said, all movies are subjective, but this movie to me smells PU because I didn't care for it.
I kind of echo that, just because I watched it once and I barely remember anything about it, just because of how utterly forgetful it was. I feel that he was trying to balance the comedic with the serious, and it didn't work out because it kind of like felt like he was playing one character one moment, next character the next, and it wasn't like Me, Myself, and Irene where it actually was 2 characters. And we're going to talk about that movie later, and it's actually in the top 5 worst. But I don't know. It felt disjointed. The whole performance felt disjointed. And I mean, that's not to say I don't like Jim Carrey doing serious stuff. I do, and I think he has the acting chops to do it. But I just feel that this one was kind of a miss because it didn't really define itself in the movie. And because of everything else that was going on, as you know, and spoiler alert, there's going to be a lot of spoilers in this video. So if you haven't seen any of the Jim Carrey movies, what are you doing with your life? But what I felt that this movie did, which disserviced Jim Carrey, was it was really complex. And, the Truman Show is all about him being in this world, and it's, he's being controlled, and his whole life is being controlled. And it really took away from the narrative because they didn't play it up like they should have, at least in my opinion, because it would have been really funny if he realized that and then he just completely goes bonkers, because that would have been something Jim Carrey would do. But I don't know. It felt like they were going for this existential nonsense, but then I mean nonsense because he was trying to be funny, but not really. He was trying to temper himself, and just to get this out of the way, I think the problem with Jim Carrey is not so much the directors. I think it's the movies, or it's not so much him. It's the directors and the movies that he's in, because Jim Carrey is one of those people that you let him run. You give him a basic premise and you let him run with it. And the best movies on our list do that. And he shines best in those scenarios. But for those reasons, we felt like The Truman Show made one of our spots for our top 5 worst. And we're going to talk next about the number 23. Now, this movie, and I'm going to talk about this first. This movie, I don't know. I like it because it's dark, and we hadn't seen Jim Carrey do this dark before and do this serious, and I think that was good. However, again, it just, I don't know. There's something about it that was just disjointed. It was a good movie. But again, I feel that Jim Carrey's performance here was kind of hit and miss. There were some moments where I was like, "Oh, I buy this. He's dark. He's brooding." This was the movie that I use. This is the movie that I use as like a springboard to say that he could play Carnage, because he's really dark in this movie, and he does it okay. But I think, again, it's not to the best of his abilities. So that's my take on number 23.
Okay. Now, for me, on the other hand, I felt like he did good playing a suspenseful character. We never saw him play dark before, like you said, Roberto. Another thing, too, was the fact that, it was this whole entire premise that he did was actually pretty good. The performance-wise was good. But as for the tone of the movie and what they were going for, it was completely garbage. Because of the fact I didn't feel any type of emotion with this character. I didn't feel nothing. All I felt was a little bit of suspense that Jim Carrey brought to it, but did I actually feel any type of a character attachment to anything that this movie offered? No. I did not feel no character attachment whatsoever, and I felt like it was flat, and I actually respect what they were trying to do with it, but it just seemed like they didn't know what the target audience that they were going for at that time.
I think, again, like I said before, it's about how you treat him in the movie. And here, like with almost all the ones in our top 5 worst, it's, I don't know, like, it was just forgettable. Like this, again, it's just like The Truman Show. I barely remember this movie. And I remember watching it. I don't remember anything that happened in it. I don't remember the characters. I only remember Jim Carrey was in it, and then it was dark, and it involved the number 23. Don't ask me what the big twist was at the end, because there is a big twist, but I can't even remember what that was. I don't remember anything about this movie. It was utterly forgettable for me. So
pretty much the plot twist was the fact that his whole entire life was being filmed. And that was the
it's kind of like The Truman Show.
I believe. No. Never mind. I'm talking about The Truman Show. Cancel that.
No,
never mind.
This one, no. You actually know, but you're not on the wrong track. It was not that he was being filmed. I think that he was actually committing his own murders.
Right. That's what
it was. That's what it was. That's what it was. You sparked it. So hey, it's not that forgettable. But it's, I don't know. It was just, it's hit and miss. And the funny thing, he does not have really bad performances. They're just not good performances. So, I mean, and again, this list is subjective, but for us, it's stuff that didn't hit the mark. And I mean, most of the movies we're not even going to mention because we're only doing 10 movies on the list. But these were just movies that did not hit the mark for us. And we're going to talk about movies that hit the mark over and above later on. But with that said, we're going to move on to a movie we already mentioned while talking about The Truman Show, and that is Me, Myself, and Irene. John, take it.
The thing that I didn't like about Me, Myself, and Irene was the fact that, yes, Jim Carrey is going to be doing something different that he hasn't done before. Playing 2 characters, split personalities. But that was another one that was a hit and miss. I felt like on one corner, you have Jim Carrey, that's a loose cannon. They were actually trying to give him that creative control that he needs to actually his roles and movies and stuff. And then there's another side of him where they were trying to put a leash on him. Like, you're not going to go that route. You're
Yeah.
going to go the route that I tell you that you're going to go on, and this is what we're going to do. So I felt like he was pretty much tied to what he was going to do for one of the characters. I didn't feel like any of the characters. I didn't feel like his character was believable enough to have a split personality. And even when that dramatic music comes up, that goofy music or whatever it is comes up, I didn't feel like that he was having a split personality. All I saw was a bunch of goofy faces, and oh my god, now he has a split personality. That to me is not good character development. Then you also have the part with his family and stuff like that too that also felt flat. It had a couple of funny moments, but then it just pretty much didn't do what I wanted it to do. I had good expectations whenever I was seeing this movie, and then all of a sudden I'm like, okay, when can I leave the theater? Because really, you guys screwed me. so so that's how I feel about that.
Yeah, I'm gonna let that be the final word on that movie, just because again, some of these movies I just do not remember at all, because I think my mind's like, I don't want you to remember this because this was not a good movie, so don't remember it. Just let it be. So I'm just gonna say that and let that be the shovel that stands as the tombstone for this movie, and we'll move on.
Okay. So another movie that we have is called Yes Man. And
What, is Dumb and Dumber? Did you skip it?
we'll go back to that one.
Oh, okay, cool.
All right. Well, anyways,
Let's talk about Yes Man.
Right. With Yes Man, you have Jim Carrey, with a character who he's afraid of trying new things, where he wants to try and go out there and say yes to everything. And basically, if you drink the Kool-Aid and you join a cult, you can say yes to just about anything.
Yeah.
So, pretty much, this movie was supposed to be funny, but yet again, this movie was horrible because of the fact that they didn't use Jim Carrey the way that Jim Carrey's supposed to be. And I felt like if he was going to say yes to everything, you're going to have him doing a bunch of other goofy stuff. You have him doing guitar lessons, you have him doing Islamic things going on and stuff like that. To me, that wasn't really that funny. You have to give him a lot more goofier things to do than just those things alone. And to me, it just didn't deliver. I think
that the movie wasn't realistic either.
No, it wasn't really realistic, but I could actually see people doing that. I could actually see people going to a seminar, like Joel Olsen, going to
I thought you, when you said Joel, I thought you were gonna say Joel Schumacher. I'm like, yeah, we know he's been in a cult, because that Batman and Robin thing, that was definitely for a cult. That wasn't for everybody to see.
Right. But I could actually see that. I can actually see people going, I'm going to say yes to everything, and I don't care about the consequences.
Yeah.
Really?
And it's funny because with that premise, again, that it was a good premise to have Jim Carrey do funny crap, and be really, really funny, and be in bad situations that, because he has to say yes to everything, it would have put him in really awkward situations sometimes, because he can't say no. And again, it was just missed opportunities that I feel this movie could have taken. And again, this is one of those films that I barely remember. I remember the beginning. I remember that meeting where, he's like, yes, I'm going to say yes to everything. I'm going to do it. But that's all I remember. I don't remember anything that happens after that. Again, I think my brain has said, you know what, Roberto, I'm going to give you some mercy. You're not going to remember this. Rewind, and then don't remember that part.
And wiped out your memory on any of the bad movies that you saw.
I mean, I remember some bad movies that I saw. I mean, I remember Last Airbender.
That would we're not going to talk about.
I remember Batman and Robin really well. And the funny thing is, with bad movies, and let me just say about this. Let me say this about bad movies really quick. When there's a bad movie and I go and watch a bad movie, or I watch a bad movie to review it or whatever, it's healthy for me to view it as a comedy, even though it might not be a comedy, because then it helps me to digest the movie and to sit through it, and I can laugh, and I can just enjoy it. Whereas some movies like these that we've mentioned so far, they're forgettable in that you can't even twist them that way, and so my mind's like, you know what, no, forget it, and so I don't even remember that. But yeah, that's pretty much what I have to say about Yes Man. Just missed opportunity after missed opportunity, and when you have somebody that's as off the cuff as Jim Carrey, you need to learn how to channel that energy and channel that comedy into good scenes. And I think that may have been the fault of the writers in this one, just not writing good enough stuff for Jim Carrey to do, or it could have been the director not letting him, do stuff that he wanted to do. So that's my 2 cents on that.
Okay, and then we got Dumb and Dumber 2.
Yes. And we're talking specifically about the sequel, because I think the actual first one was okay. It was cheesy, yes, but it was okay.
Right. I'm gonna let you take this one, and now.
Okay. All right. I saw Dumb and Dumber 2, or Tool, with a friend of mine. I was actually here on spring break, and I wanted to claw my eyes out with my own nails. And my friend was like, "Hey, you want me to rent Dumb and Dumber 2 and we can watch it in your dorm?" I said, "Yeah, sure." And it was okay. I don't know. It tried too hard is what, if I could sum up the movie in one phrase, tried too hard would probably be the phrase that I would put on it, because some of the humor was just nasty and not good, oh, that was sick, but no, it was bad, downright awful. I thought the performances were okay. I mean, it's obvious that Jeff Daniels and Jim Carrey have chemistry, but it didn't land. It just, most of the jokes, they didn't land. And it was pretty much a rehash of the first one, just change a little bit of the story around, and that's pretty much what you got. Where, I mean, the dude's in an insane asylum, or no, he's in a nursing home to start off the movie.
Right.
Do something creative with this, say that he has a warrant, he can't leave the insane asylum, and then have the whole movie is Jeff Daniels trying to break him out of the insane asylum, and then at the end have the reveal where he actually is faking the whole entire time, which they should have milked that. They should have milked that moment, and they didn't. But again, it was one of those where it kind of felt like a remake instead of an actual sequel, because it was so redone, the same plot points redone, where it would have been much funnier if they would have given it a new premise and then had them, give it, again, the best way to deal with Jim Carrey is give him a simple formula and let him go. And when you have somebody that has that much chemistry with him, like Jeff Daniels does, just change up the story, make it more interesting, make it different, and just let them run with it. But again, missed opportunity.
Okay. For me, on the other hand, I felt like, it was a missed opportunity, but at the same time, too, I felt like they waited too long to make the sequel. Had this movie come out in the 90s or late, or a couple of years after Dumb and Dumber, where you actually have a bunch of people. I remember my friends going to see this movie 5 times in the theater, at least.
Well, I mean, tickets were cheaper then.
True, but for the original one, I remember my friends going over there, seeing the very first one for maybe 5 or 10 times in a row, laughing at the same jokes. And then think about it: if they ended up coming out with this back in after this one came out, or maybe a couple of years later, they would have capitalized on this big time, because you still have fans of the premise of the original.
True.
You also have people who would come back and watch it over again.
True.
But this movie was to be honest, they waited too long. But aside from that, they were trying too hard to do what they were trying to capture in the first movie, and they didn't know how to capitalize on it. So they're like, okay, let's just go and put this in here. Oh, let's give Jim Carrey or Jeff Daniels a road trip adventure looking for the daughter.
Yeah.
And to me, the perfect setting was the nursing home, and Jeff Daniels trying to break them out of the nursing home.
Yeah. And I feel with remakes, if you with a remake, I'm going to compare Dumb and Dumber 2 with Jurassic World for a minute, and you're going to see where I'm going with this in a minute. Because they're both basically, they're sequels to popular movies of the 90s. And here's the difference between those two movies, other than the fact that their genres are different. The stuff that Jurassic World did right, and I'm not saying that everything was done right, and I have my own review on I talk about the movie to at length in another video. But the stuff that Jurassic World did right, it did right to such a degree that you didn't really care about what it did wrong because there was so much it had done right. With Dumb and Dumber 2, you don't even have that because it really doesn't do much correctly. So you can't even say that I can enjoy this. I can't say that I enjoy the movie because there's nothing to enjoy. Everything is overdone or underdone, and the plot is rehashed. There's no originality in it whatsoever. The jokes just do not land 99.9% of the time. So you don't even have that luxury of saying, oh, wow, they really got this moment. This was really Dumb and Dumber, the moment of the movie. They didn't even do that. So because of that, I'm glad that I saw it as a Redbox movie. I'm glad I didn't go to see this in theaters. I wanted to, but I'm kind of glad that whatever event led me to not going, thank you, Lord, because I would have walked out on this movie probably after like the 20th minute.
Well, I saw this on DirecTV, and I'm like, okay, I'm glad that I didn't waste $7 on this movie.
Yeah.
Like, okay. And, the trailers and everything didn't really sell me that much because I felt like they were doing it a little too much, especially with the catheter thing that he was pulling on at the very start of it. I'm like, yeah, it's definitely
Sorry.
It's okay. Anyways, that pretty much concludes the top 5 worst movies.
Okay.
Now,
All right. Now we're going to have some fun because now we're going to talk about the top 5 best. And this man, when he hits the mark, oh, does he hit the mark? Yes. And we're going to start with none other than The Mask, which is one of my favorite movies of all time. Probably because of the nostalgia, but I mean, it's just so good, and I can watch it today and still laugh and still have fun. But I'm going to let John talk about it first, and then I'm going to come in there and talk about it a little more because this movie needs to be talked about.
This movie, I have to say this movie was my anticipated movie of the summer. I remember actually seeing the movie trailers for it. And then a group of my friends dragged our parents to go and see this movie when we were little. And we had a great time with this movie.
How old were you? How old were you when you saw this movie?
I want to say at least maybe 10 or 11 years old.
Wait, how old are you now?
I'm 31.
Okay, that makes sense because I was born.
Anyways, while little being put in the nursery, I went on ahead and a group of my friends went to see this movie. And my God, that we laughed our butts off all the way through this thing. You have Jim Carrey, who was so out of control, and he managed to play a lot of characters that you never thought. It was like watching a Looney Tune movie, live action Looney Tune movie attached to this man's face, and he was able to capture every single character and that Looney Tune thing. No. Then you have Carmen Diaz, who's hot.
In her very first movie ever. But,
right. I remember my jaw just dropping and how hot she was. I'm like, that's my girlfriend.
And this is when I keep my mouth shut because I have a joke, but it's too bad.
All right. But I felt like Jim Carrey delivered in this movie 100% all the way through. It felt like he was passionate about it. And I'm glad that he made this movie because this is a movie that I go back to all the time, and the effects still hold up today. And
I went there. Yes, I did. in case you don't know what's going on, I just wrote the joke on the chat because we have a chat going as we're doing the video, just to keep track of our notes. And I wrote the joke in the chat as he was talking, and I destroyed his sentence structure. You're welcome.
That was during the time whenever I went through puberty early.
That was the reason.
Right. Anyways, you take it away now, Roberta.
All right. Yeah, because you've already taken it far away. Okay, so this movie, it's kind of funny. This movie, I actually saw it for the first time in Cuba. I saw it in Spanish before I saw it in English. And it was hysterical. I remember just It was funny because I was so small that I was actually scared of the mask for a little while because I mean some of the scenes looked a little intimidating to a 4-year-old, but I loved it. You know, after I grew out of it, and I had nightmares about this thing, and it's a comedy, but this movie, I mean, it did everything right. I have this movie on VHS. To this day, I have not bought the DVD because VHSs last forever. And this is one movie that I'll pop in a lot because I don't know. There's something about this movie that it does everything right. The story was good. The way it handled the characters was good. It was cliche, but it was good cliche. It wasn't like Dumb and Dumber too cliche. It was done right because it's perfect 90s cheeseball movie, but it's done so well that it's like, okay, it holds up. The effects in this movie, terrific, because they didn't have to look like real things. They were emulating cartoons, and so the effects were fantastic. The jokes landed every time. The story was excellent. The way that the characters were handled were excellent. Everything about this movie was awesome. Even the villain, and the villain was a little weak because it was just, okay, the bad version of the mask. But even then, it was so good. And the funny thing is, this movie is an adaptation of a comic book and a TV series, and it did better with the source material than the source material. And this is one of those scenarios where taking a property and making changes actually worked for its benefit. Because again, you have somebody that is as rubbery faced as Jim Carrey that can play off of prosthetics and can play off of the mask. He actually wore giant teeth, like bigger over his teeth, and he could still act, he could still talk, he can still do all the stuff he did. And it worked out perfectly. Cameron Diaz was great. All the supporting characters, like the police chief, was hysterical because it was like the stereotypical police chief that was always goofing up. Like I said, all the cartoony stuff in this movie, absolutely hysterical. When the dog face comes out when he sees Cameron Diaz for the first time, like, and doing all those, and it's based on Tex Avery cartoons. So all that stuff, like the wolf going, you know, it's just, perfect. And then when the dog puts on the mask, oh my gosh, it just, this is one movie that did everything right. And it goes to show because people are still watching it to this day. And if you have not seen The Mask, if you're one of those people that has been living on the earth for 22, 23 years at this point, or was born at some point in between there and was not blessed enough to catch this movie, go and rent it, go and find it, go somewhere and get it. It's still at Walmart. They probably still sell it at Target and a bunch of places because it's still good. It still holds up, and it's just a great movie. It's a great story and it's a comedy that does not shortchange good storytelling for comedy, which I think is the key. They built in the comedy into the story so well that everything that happens makes sense and it's well done. I have nothing bad to say about this movie. I really don't, because it's just so good that it really doesn't do anything wrong for what it was trying to accomplish. And again, it actually improved on the source material that it came from, which is really, really, really rare. So I have nothing to say about this movie. This movie's like one of those 5-star movies for me because it did everything right. So, but that's me.
So the next one we have is Ace Ventura, Pet Detective.
And its sequel.
When Nature Calls.
Oh, hang on. Before we move on to that,
Majestic.
I want to talk about this. If you haven't seen The Mask, do not make the mistake and rent Son of the Mask, because you will want to pluck your eyes out.
Yeah. That movie was
I've watched reviews of that movie. I've actually tried to sit through that movie. That movie's from Satan. This is his recruiting video to get people into hell. It's the Son of the Mask. I kid you not. This movie is terrible. It is awful and should not be watched ever. And if you want to pop it in because you're a sadist and you like this kind of stuff, this kind of torture, go ahead. This is worse than 50 Shades of Grey. It's worse than 50 Shades of Grey. This is 50 Shades a screwed up man. Son of the Mask. Do not watch it. Now,
You
let's move on.
quoted 50 Shades of Grey quote.
Huh?
You just quoted a 50 Shades of Grey quote without even knowing you quoted.
Oh, no, I did. I knew what I was doing.
All right. I'm just wondering. So, anyways. We have the Majestic.
You're still going through puberty, aren't you?
Huh?
You're still going through puberty, aren't you? I heard you go, ah!
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, you're thinking about Cameron Diaz again. I know you.
I plead the fifth. I don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
Okay, so we got the Majestic on the list. And to me, this actually shows more of his serious side.
Done right. Done right.
Right. This time we actually get to see more of his serious side done right. Opposed to the number 23, where he's obsessed with the number 23. This movie delivers in a big way. And not only that, but if you're a big fan of going to the movies and actually having a cinema feel to it, it gives you that tone of the movie of appreciation for movies and what the actors and actresses do to be able to actually captivate what they have to do to pull out the best performances so that way you can believe it. Jim Carrey did a very good job with this movie. First off, you have a character who just doesn't care about nothing or anything like that. All he cares is about the moolah, pretty much, and doesn't care about anything. Then you see his character development, seeing him develop into a character that you can love, and see how these people actually show love towards him and embracing him. And it gives you this warm feeling in your heart whenever you see him trying to fix up this Majestic, this movie theater for these people so they can have a place to go and watch movies. And just have that magic feeling of going to a cinema. And the quote that was in that movie about movies in general was fantastic. I mean, I don't remember the quote exactly, but that was my favorite quote of the whole entire movie. And to me, Jim Carrey delivered all the way through this movie and had the best character development ever. Anyways, I'm gonna let you take it over.
Well, no, I mean, I haven't. I've seen parts of this movie. I haven't seen it all, but now you're talking about it, it makes me want to go see it. So I definitely will go and check it out. Because I mean, it feels like it's one of those films that's just for the love of film, which is a good thing. So I think I'm just gonna leave it there, and say that I really want to see this movie now. So with that said, let's move on to what we were actually going to move on to, but then kind of went to the Majestic, and that was the
Sorry, it's my ADD.
first famous character by Jim Carrey, who he actually wrote the first movie script for, and that is Ace Ventura, Pet Detective.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Alrighty then.
Alrighty.
So, this movie, I loved it whenever he was trying to find Flipper. Trying to find the dolphin in this movie. That was my favorite thing in this whole entire movie as well. And then him trying to investigate what's going on and everything. Especially the slow motion. All right, let's try this in slow motion. That was just comical. This is a movie that I had tears coming out of my eyes, just as much as tears coming out of my eyes whenever I saw The Mask.
Yeah.
This is that the directors allowed him to go, woohoo, made him go.
That's
crazy.
the funny thing. This movie, The Mask, and Dumb and Dumber came out the same year.
That's right. I remember renting. Get this. I remember going to Blockbuster. That's right, boys and girls. In case you don't remember Blockbusters.
I love Blockbuster.
There's this place that you can go to and you can rent movies there.
It's got doors and walls, and it's made of
and you had
concrete.
Watch movies instead of having the little stars right there for you to read. You have other people to review it. Yeah, those were the employees. Anyways, like I said, I remember going to Blockbuster to rent Dumb and Dumber, and then I think maybe the summer after next I rented Ace Ventura. I liked Ace Ventura better than Dumb and Dumber.
Yeah, it was better. That's
It
why it's
had
on our top 5, and Dumb and Dumber. Well, no, Dumb and Dumber 2 is on our top worst.
but
Yeah.
like it delivered more. You had that level of funniness without having to be too funny, without trying to, you know what I'm saying? Like without actually forcing it to happen. It was just there. He was like Robin Williams, and
Yeah.
pretty much.
Well, it's because the character made sense. Like, it made sense that he was over the top. I mean, this guy lives alone with like 3,000 animals. So it makes sense that he's a little nuts, and so it never felt really forced. Even the part where he's talking out of his butt. It's like, okay, I buy it. You know, let's go.
But my other favorite part too was, let's see here. There was another funny part that I liked whenever his landlord comes in. He goes, Ventura. And he goes,
Yes, Satan?
You want to make me let you have your. You want me to make your life a living hell? No, thank you. Oh, that was from the.
I love that. Like when he goes to the apartment and the landlord, Ventura, and you, yes, Satan. I'm like, yes.
That was awesome.
And I love when he goes into the pool of the dolphin. And he goes,
oh,
Stardate. He's like, Stardate 2073. We are on the trail for, and I'm like, oh, this is fantastic. And then he actually just.
And then you also had the Mission Impossible music going in there.
Yeah. Yeah. And I will say this: the sequel to it was good. Oh, one thing I want to talk about the first one, the shark scene, where he goes in and like he thinks he's found the dolphin, and he goes into the pool, and then it ends up being a shark.
That was just awesome.
And then he comes out, woo! Do not go in there. I was like, oh, that's fantastic. Like I said, I mean, this movie, like The Mask, it hit a lot of stuff right. It was a little bit worse than The Mask, just because The Mask did everything right. This one, they were moments, but even in the moments, it was still pretty good. And again, he wrote because the studio that produced it went to Jim Carrey with the script. He said, "I'm doing it, but I'm not doing it like this." And he rewrote the entire thing himself. So the movie that we got to see was actually his interpretation of this character, which I'm like, yes. So I mean, and like I said, the movie it was good. He was good. Even the part I loved when he figures out that the guy is the same as the lady. And he goes into the shower naked. Oh, yeah. I'm like, oh my gosh, this is so bad, but it's so good.
Then, the police captain part made me laugh too. Was when he goes up in there and she's like, "Do you want me to make your life a living hell?" No, thank you. I'm not.
Thank you.
I'm not. No, thank you. Not a relationship. And then the shower scene when he realizes he kissed a man. I kissed a man
with a plunger.
I kissed Jingle.
Bingo is Einhorn. Bingo is Einhorn.
I kissed Einhorn.
Oh my gosh, that was terrible. Oh, but I mean, it was well done. And even the sequel, I thought the sequel was a good sequel. The part with the slinky.
A slinky. That was my favorite part of the whole movie.
The slinky, the Monopoly guy.
And you must be the Monopoly guy. Sorry, do not pass go. Do not collect $200.
What else? Like, when he comes out of the rhino.
Or the puppet thing.
What puppet thing?
The shadow puppet.
Oh yeah, and I love the scene about the guano.
Oh yeah,
is that what it is? He was like, bats.
Peanuts? No, I carry on. But thank you very much.
But yeah, I mean, and that was one where, and it's funny because he said after he did, Dumb and Dumber, or not Dumb and Dumber, after he did Ace Ventura, When Nature Calls, that he didn't like doing sequels because it didn't give him anything new to do. But I mean, that could be just that it was not as well written as he would have liked. I mean, he did write the first one, so you know. So I mean, that's what I always heard, that's what shied him away from doing sequels, was because he didn't find anything rewarding in it. The only reason why he even considered doing Series Unfortunate Events was because Count Olaf essentially plays different characters. As you go through the series, each book he plays basically a different character because he wears disguises and he's basically putting on an act. But it's still the same guy. But that's what at least that's what I heard. I don't know if you heard anything different.
I heard about that, but then I also heard the fact that the movie also didn't do good financially. It didn't make that much.
Yeah. Because they offered him $10 million for The Mask 2, man.
And he turned it down.
I'm like, and now we have Son of the Mask.
I know. I was so excited whenever I heard that there was going to be another one. All of a sudden, we got.
I'm just waiting for the Mask to show up in the MCU. Imagine that one. It's like, by the way, you know this MCU thing, 1994, not 2008, 94. That'd be kind of hilarious if, like, they at the end of Ragnarok or something, they imprison Loki in a mask.
Oh,
I'd be like,
that could actually work.
I'd be like, kill me, Marvel, just kill me now.
I'm
done with life.
You have Loki in the Marvel universe. I would love to see like an introduction to his mask.
That would be hysterical. Because, I mean, I don't know who has the rights to the character of the Mask. I don't think anybody wants it. But, I mean, who knows if Disney has it at this point. That'd be just an absolutely hilarious thing to do. So, yeah. Kevin Feige, if you're listening to this message, this is what you need to do. But, yeah, I've always thought about that. Actually, there's a meme online that says, you know, we actually were introduced to Loki way before Thor in 2011. And it was the Mask, because he was basically Loki. And I was like, oh, the ideas. My brain is functioning.
That would have been epic if they did that.
Oh, they still can. Ragnarok is coming, so right. That would be the icing on the cake for me. Since technically, here's what I don't understand. Maybe you can enlighten me.
Okay.
Lucasfilm. Well, okay, let me back up. ILM belongs to LucasArts, who was sold to Disney. So, does Disney now own ILM?
I don't know. That's actually a good question.
Which, I mean, if they do, they have a monopoly on the whole film business now.
Well, here's what I think. I believe, like, if you're gonna have Lucasfilm, everything that Lucas gave to them, I think that it would actually coincide with that studio.
Well, I mean, because it is a division of LucasArts, and they bought LucasArts. They didn't just buy Star Wars and Indiana Jones. They bought LucasArts.
Right. So yeah, that would actually go with it.
Oh, interesting. Just a thought that came to my mind. All right. So the next movie. So we talked about Ace Ventura. Now we're going to talk about Dr. Seuss's How the Grinch Stole Christmas, not the animated version, but the live-action version. And for the record, I think both of them are awesome. I'm going to let John talk about it first, and then I'm going to put in my 20,000 cents on this movie.
Let's see. This is another movie I saw in the movie theaters.
This one I saw in the movie theaters. I was actually alive.
I remember going to the movie theaters and laughing my butt off at this movie. Now, this movie was actually pretty funny. I actually enjoyed it. And I had a good time with it. But it was one of those movies that kept on playing over and over and over again to where I just couldn't enjoy it anymore. And I love the movie, but I just couldn't like the movie anymore after that. Yes, Robo.
Teacher, yes. They're actually making a live action Grinch this year. Or not a live action, CGI, like Alvin and the Chipmunks.
No, I like the other one better.
Which I'm like, what? What do you have to add? What are you gonna add?
It's gonna be the same story.
What are you gonna add? Just leave the special and the movie as the definitive Grinches. Don't do this. Don't do this. Please don't. You did good with Peanuts. I thought Peanuts was a good movie, but don't try and do with the Grinch, because the thing with Peanuts is there's a bunch of different stories you can do with Peanuts. The Grinch is only one. I mean, there's really two, but nobody talks about the second one. So, do you know what the second one is?
What's that?
The Grinch steals the Cat in the Hat's hat, and then the Cat in the Hat has to go after him to find it. And I'm like, that'd be a great premise, just not with Michael Myers.
No.
Not with no.
I didn't care for
That's another movie. That's another movie that needs to die. Like,
actually, I think it did.
No, I mean, like, they should take all the copies of that movie and bury them deep. Like,
I think the Michael Myers one buried that movie.
I mean, it just, because here's the problem, and I watched reviews about this movie, about Cat in the Hat. He doesn't have the Jim Carrey face that can actually act through the makeup.
Right.
So every time he wanted to actually do something with his face, he looked like he was out of breath and huffing and puffing and like it sounded like a chain smoker. Every time he laughed, it was like he was hacking up a lung instead of actually laughing. It was, I don't know, so weird. But back to the Grinch. This was one of those, again, it's like The Mask, where it's a simple premise, but you give Jim Carrey a lot of Jim Carrey, time to do what he wants. And it works out so well. I think he has chemistry with Cindy Lou, who in this movie was a little bit more than two. I think, it worked out. I liked that they talked about the childhood, which a lot of people were like, no, don't talk about it. Don't explain it. But I actually like the explanation they gave, and it makes sense. I mean, there was something that I was, how old was I? I would have been 6. I would have been 6. So when this movie came out, like, I can relate to that. I was going to school. I can relate to, him being bullied and then wanting to go off somewhere and live by himself. I can attest to that. I mean, I wasn't bullied in elementary school, but I could see that, and it was something that it made it relatable to me, and it made it relatable to a lot of people, which is why a lot of people like it. Does it stand up to Boris Karloff? Maybe not, but I mean that doesn't detract from it, because Boris Karloff's version is excellent. And I mean, I don't see why you have to pick one over the other. It's like the whole Marvel versus DC thing. You don't have to pick one or the other. You can love both and just get on with your life.
I think that they added more to the Grinch's character by giving our background. I'm supposed to think, well, here's the Grinch. We're just going to throw him in. He hates Christmas.
Right. And it hit the beats that it needed to hit, to where it didn't detract. And that's the thing. Well, like I've always said with remakes, and I said it earlier, a remake is good if you add something to what's already been done, which Jim Carrey's Grinch did, because it added a backstory to the Grinch. It added the childhood of the Grinch. It added the whole part with Cindy Lou actually trying to figure out who the Grinch was, because she actually thought he was pretty cool, which I'm like, yeah, that's how I would view the Grinch. It's like, oh, this thing is cool. I want to go and check it out. And I thought, I mean, it was funny. It was legitimately funny. Like when he gets his intro and you don't see his face yet, and he's just like rubbing an onion on his armpits as deodorant. I'm like, yeah, that's pretty much what I would imagine the Grinch would be, just doing weird stuff. And then when he's putting on the clothes when he's changing, and he like starts, rawr, rawr, I was like, yeah. I mean, at this point, I would expect that he's gone full mental, and that's how Ace Ventura ends up in the mental hospital, because he turned into the Grinch, had a mental episode, and then came back as a human. Came back down the cliff. So, but no, I mean, I love the movie. I think it was very well done. Everything about the movie was well done. The only critique I have is more towards the technical side, more of the film, and it's not the story or him. I mean, the Whoville felt like, what are we filming in San Francisco? It's covered in smog. Like the lens, like it felt like somebody breathed on it every time they started filming, and then all you saw was like this haze and glaze over the film. I'm like, we are not watching this movie over a Krispy Kreme convertible, whatever the thing is, where the donuts go and the glaze gets on the donuts. I felt like they put a camera there where the glaze is going down on the donuts, because it felt like you were watching it through like this glaze. And I'm like, that's weird, but okay. But I mean, again, that's more technical. It's not about him, and I think he did a good job.
Right. The next one we have is Liar Liar.
I love this movie so much.
This movie as well. And what I love about this movie is that the fact that it's an original movie, it's an original idea, because no one ever thought about doing something like this. Where you have
Talk about it. I'll be right back.
All right. That wishes that his dad would actually tell the truth, or someone would tell the truth, and actually can won't lie for a day. I thought this movie was very well put together. Like I said, it was also an original idea, but I also like the fact that Jim Carrey delivered in this movie. The energy that he had in this movie was fantastic. I like the courtroom scenes with Jim Carrey in it, where he's just being ball. And then another thing I liked about the courtroom stuff was the fact that, Jennifer Kelly was like, "How old are you?" "I'm 23. "Yeah, in your bra." And then I also like the part where he goes, "Where did you get that? Where did you get that? Where was this frame from?" "I got it. You said you got it at Tiffany's." "I got it at Marshall's." That to me was the most.
The fart, the elevator.
Yeah, the elevator.
Oh my gosh, that was great. And this is another example of all the comedy in this movie landed. And when it was time to get serious, I believed him, because he was a scumbag that couldn't keep any promises that he made. So I believed that. And I thought, again, it's one of those things where the premise is simple enough to where you can understand it, you believe it, and then everything that happens is because of that premise. So everything when he got stopped by the cops and he told him everything he did and then showed him the parking tickets, I'm like, yeah, that's something that this guy would do, and it's believable. The first gag of after he when the boy wishes and he's doing the dirty with one of the coworkers, that was, I mean, it was absolutely hysterical, and I'm like, yes. And I mean, and it just ramped up. It never stopped. And never gave it a break. It always, kept going. So I think, I mean, it hit everything it needed to hit. And there were some scenes that were just magical. I mean, like, they were just perfectly done. Like the pen.
Right, the pen was hilarious. The color of the pen is royal
blue. And then he has the blue all over his face. But yeah, I thought this movie was excellent. I have no complaints about the movie, really, because everybody else bounces off him well enough to where it doesn't detract from the story. So even though the characters might not be properly done, they serve the purpose, which is we need people that are normal to bounce off of Jim Carrey, and it worked, and it didn't feel like they were just there to bounce off of Jim Carrey. I thought they were there because he needed to be there, and it made sense. So,
all right, and I'm gonna let you finish.
All right, I'm gonna talk about this one because John has not watched this movie, and I have, and I had to put this in the top 5 for me, because this is an excellent movie and it's an excellent character, and I'm talking about Lemony Snicket's A Series of Unfortunate Events and Jim Carrey playing Count Olaf, Stefano, Captain Sham, all together in one movie, and it's actually playing Count Olaf in disguise. But this movie, I loved the adaptation. I went nuts over these books. I actually own all of the books. And I would, when the whole craze, this was my Twilight, man. This was my Twilight. This was my Hunger Games, because these books actually are written well. Yeah, I went there. But I would read one of these books a night, and they weren't long, so it wasn't hard. But I would read one of these at night, and I did this for like weeks on end, just reading it over and over again. The writing style is great. And then when it came time, when I saw that they were going to adapt this into a movie, this was when I was like starting to get into like liking movies and liking, how they work, reviewing. This is when I started making movies. This is actually one of the movies that was one of the reasons why I made my own movie. So it's really special to me. The score on this movie is tremendous. Thomas Newman knocks this out of the park with the score. It feels like it belongs in the world that Lemony Snicket's created. The whole film, it feels like you stepped into the book, which is what an adaptation should do. It should feel like you stepped into that world and it sucked you into that world. It's basically like an IMAX experience where you feel like you're in it. That's what it should feel like when you're watching an adaptation. And that's why the Narnia movies, except for the third one, work so well, because you're in that environment. And Jim Carrey helps you in that he's over the top. He's always going to be the best movies he's in. He's over the top, but it makes sense because this is a guy. He's playing an actor. If you know Count Olaf at all, he's playing an actor, so he's already full of himself, and he just plays that up to the umpteenth degree, which does not feel forced at all. It feels like it was naturally there, and it's what Count Olaf would do. He's a pompous jerk who just wants to do what he wants to do and doesn't care about the consequences. And I felt like Jim Carrey did that, but did that in a way that's more suited to his style, which is comedy rather than dark. A lot of people say, oh, he's just doing the Jack Sparrow routine again, where he's supposed to be menacing, but he's going to come off as funny. And I like that. Now, if they would have kept the series going and he would have gotten darker, it would have made sense, because now he's a little bit more agitated because he's tried to get the fortune time and time again, and it doesn't work. So it would have made sense for him to go dark. But here at the beginning, it makes sense for him to do all this funny stuff because he's an actor. He's playing an actor. It makes perfect sense. And I think that he did well. I thought the comedy that he brought to the movie added to it. He was actually intimidating in some of the scenes, which was great because even though he was comedic, he was also intimidating and was a great foil to the kids. Even the last scene, I love the play that he puts on at the end, and because he gets to play more characters. But he was diabolical. I was like, oh, dude, this is Count Olaf. Yes, I like it. And now that Neil Patrick Harris is being cast as Count Olaf for the Netflix series, I'm like, and y'all killed it. Now, I'm going to reserve judgment for that because, I mean, to me, Jim Carrey is the definitive Count Olaf at this point. Who knows? He might, Neil Patrick Harris might do something good with it, but I doubt it's going to be as good as Jim Carrey did, because Jim Carrey, when he does it right, he does it right, just in spades. And I feel that he did that with Count Olaf, which is why he's one of my favorite characters that he's ever played, and probably my favorite. I think the only characters that top Count Olaf as the favorite characters Jim Carrey's ever played is probably The Mask and The Grinch, and that's it. And simply because The Grinch was just so good that what he added to it was excellent. And The Mask, that it's in a league all on its own. But I love the movie. I love Jim Carrey in it. I think that they should have kept going with the cast that they had. It was a great cast. Billy Connolly, Meryl Streep is in this movie. A bunch of good actors and a bunch of good production values. I heard that this movie didn't even make enough to cover production costs, which I was like, did you not market this movie properly? What did you do? Because this movie is excellent.
Well, every time when I turned around, there was always a commercial for it.
Yeah.
So
I don't know. I mean, I don't know why it didn't do as well as that. Because, I mean, you talk about nuts. I was in middle school by the time this movie came out, there was not a Series of Unfortunate Events books on the shelf because everybody wanted to read them. And I'm like, people went nuts over this. And for it not to have made the money, unless they completely ballooned the budget, which I don't think so, because a lot of it was green screen, but it was done right. I don't know. But this movie was well done. It's one of those movies that doesn't get enough attention, in my opinion.
Well, the budget was $125 million to make.
That's not bad.
That's how much was it to make. Now,
yeah.
Let me see. Continue talking.
We're gonna analyze this, because I'm glad that we're analyzing this because, and if you haven't seen the movie or if you need to watch it again, please watch it again. I own a 2-disc edition, a limited edition of this movie. I actually have it right here. I'm gonna show y'all because y'all need to love this movie as much as I do. This is a limited edition or collector's edition, 2-disc edition. I'm gonna show y'all what's in it because this is cool. My mom 2 or 3 Christmases ago, she went out and she bought me all these different editions I never knew existed. Like I have a Kingdom of Heaven 4-disc, I have a Gladiator 3-disc edition, this, and I have a extended edition of King Arthur, a director's cut. But I'm gonna show you this. So this is disc 1. This is what comes in everything, and it has bonus features. And one of the best bonus features this has is they were screen testing or costume testing and light testing Jim Carrey's Count Olaf, and he would actually like come up with the story for Count Olaf, and they actually played that up, and I was like, that was excellent because a lot of the lines that he just improv, they pulled into the film and they wrote into the script. There's a lot of fun stuff, and the second one is more about how they made the movie, which again, I love that kind of stuff. So for me, it was excellent and a great gift. So thank you, Mom. But seriously, watch this movie. It is excellent. Yes,
okay,
John?
so the budget itself was $140 million, and made $209.1 million.
Oh, so it did go over.
Well, to be honest with you, okay, this is how you're supposed to do it when a movie makes money and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Okay, so you take a third of that money away.
Okay.
The money that you take away, that's going to be the actual how much it costs.
Okay.
How much it actually made. Because you have to think like this. Movie theaters only take in a third of what they make.
True.
And then after that, it goes straight to the PR people and everything else.
Right.
So if you take that away, that's going to be the actual cost. So therefore, after you take away that money, it didn't make that much.
Ah, that's why. Okay, that makes sense. Okay, because yeah, I remember after the movie came out, everybody was like, "Oh, it didn't make enough money to even cover production costs. This movie's awful." I'm like, y'all did not watch the same movie I did, or probably they switched the films on y'all because that movie was excellent. And one of the best things about the movie was the fake out at the beginning, which you haven't seen this, so I'm not going to give it away in this video. But the beginning of the movie has a fake out, and it's fantastic. So,
I have a question too. Of books. What year did the books come out?
The books? Ooh. We will go to the source of knowledge. Google. Because we want to get this right for you guys. But like I said, I love this movie. I love reading the books. If you haven't read the books, there's 13 of them, but they're like 100 pages a piece. So it's not like it's exhausting. Because they're short. So please go out and get this movie. Oh, the books came out in 1999. The movie came out in 2004.
Okay, so there wasn't really a big long gap between the books.
The last book, hang on, let me see when the last book came out. Last book came out in 2006 after the movie, because they were still being written when the movie came out.
Right. So what I'm thinking is, I didn't take that. So if you think about it, the original books, and everything wasn't that long of a time period between the books and the movie. So therefore, you can't say.
Oh no, they overlapped.
Right, because you can't say because of how long they waited to do a movie for the books, they lost the fan base, because the fan base was already there to begin with.
Yeah.
So I was thinking maybe it did poorly because the fan base wasn't there as long. Because
one thing that I will say, because it's a 13-part series, when I heard this movie was coming to Netflix, I was just rolling around, going nuts, because that's what it needed. It needed one movie, because what the movie did was it took 3 books and it jammed it into one movie, which actually worked because the way they played with the narrative worked. But they should do. I always thought that they should do episodic movies, which now with Netflix it's going to be able to do. So I don't know. It might be better. I don't know. I just don't like Neil Patrick Harris playing Count Olaf because I don't see that. It was funny seeing Jim Carrey as him, but I mean, he pulled off the look so well, and he pulled off the character so well that when you just sit down and watch it, you just enjoy it because he does so well. But again, this is one of those where I don't really know what went wrong here. But if you do get a chance, please check this movie out. If you get it from the library or something and enjoy it, because I promise you'll have a good time.
All right.
Oh, do you want to talk about the new stuff that because apparently he's coming out with 2 movies this year.
Right.
Jim Carrey. Yeah, which I was like, and John told me about that, and I was like, oh, this is cool. I didn't know that.
Okay, hold on. Let me go on ahead and get this up. That way I can...
All right. Yeah, the last movie he did before Dumb and Number 2 was the number 23, and then he kind of went into hiding, and nobody knew what the heck he was up to for years.
Well, he's got 2 movies coming out. One's called True Crimes, and the other one's called Bad Batch. Now, True Crimes is going to be a suspenseful movie with like a little bit of a crime drama about a murder investigation of a slain businessman turns to clues found in the author's book about an eerie similar crime based on a 2008 New York article by David Grant. To me, I think this would actually be a pretty good movie to see how he does with his suspense and everything, and maybe he can actually captivate what he couldn't do in the number 23.
Yeah.
So this will actually be a good move for him. And he might actually make a little comeback with this movie because, he didn't do good on that gun rights thing whenever that happened. So that's pretty much ruined his career. And that also is the reason why people don't really like his movies anymore. But
it's because, it made him look like a hypocrite. But, I understood where he was coming from. I feel that he should have worded the argument better because I think that the movie had too much violence. But don't go and be, I'm anti-gun. No, don't be anti-gun. Be anti-ultra-violence because, nobody likes violent crimes. Okay. And that's the point why we have gun laws, is to stop violent crimes.
Okay. The Bad Batch that he has coming out is called as a love story about a dystopian. It's a dystopian love story in a Texas wasteland and set in the community of cannibals.
I know, I saw that. I was like, and that's a Jim Carrey movie for you. Who knows? I think he's actually playing one of the cannibals. Which I'm like, yes, Jim Carrey back to form.
So that actually pretty much sums everything up.
Yeah.
But still, the movie that sticks out the most.
Listen, to you guys that are watching, what we'd like you to do is give us your thoughts on what you thought about our review. We just reviewed 10 movies, really, and however long this video took. But we want to see what you thought about our takes on these movies and how you would rank, your best and worst for Jim Carrey. Like I said, when we were doing the top 5 worst, it doesn't mean they're bad. It's just his worst, which it's kind of sounds worse than it is. Because he doesn't really do bad films. He's just sometimes it's hit or miss, and sometimes he just misses. But not only that, give us your rating, but also tell us down in the comments what actor or director you want us to do this analysis with. We're very well versed in movies, and if we're not, we'll go out and watch them. We love movies and we love to watch them. So I don't know what we're going to do next. I don't know what actor we're going to do next, but we thought, Jim Carrey was a good way to start because we grew up on his films and we love his films for the most part. So we kind of felt like it was right to do him for the very first best and worst edition of the movie channel with John DiGregorio. And we're hoping to get more people in on these videos just to kind of give us another take on what we're talking about. I mean, we've been talking about everything ranging from superhero movies, and I've done some videos from Movie Lovers Unite because I'm also an admin there. So we've done videos on comic books, we've done videos on trailers, we've done videos now comparing like a whole career's worth of films of a person. So give us your thoughts, give us ideas for videos, give us what your best and worst ideas are of people that we should do, actors and directors. And if you want to do composers, I would love to do that too, because I listen to movie scores all the time. I love movie scores. I have my favorites, and I have those that just don't land for me. So let us know. And like I said, this is Movie Critic Rob with the Movie Channel, here with John DeGregorio of Movie Lovers Unite. Thank you so much for tuning into this video, and we hope that you like, comment, subscribe, and do all that funny stuff you like to do with our videos. And check out John's page as well. He has a page for his group called Movie Lovers Unite, and I'm also on there quite a bit, so you'll be able to catch me on there too. Thank you so much. Any closing words, John, before I sign us off?
That's pretty much it. And I hope you guys enjoy this video, and I hope that you guys were able to see what we were trying to bring to the table. And I'm going to let Roberto close us out, and I hope everyone has a good night.
Somebody stop me!